Hello, this is Debbie, and this is Light Up Your Word. I am so tickled today and excited to bring you today's guest. This week, I'm going to be talking with Rain, my friend Rain. You might remember her also from the Mindset Summit from February 2023. She was one of our wonderful guests. Rain is a spiritual counselor and meditation teacher in private practice who has been offering her services of presence and healing since 2000. She holds a bachelor's in psychology with special studies in biofeedback and somatics. She also has a master's degree in East-West psychology with a certificate in expressive arts consulting and education. Her unique offering is based in compassion for all that is. She is a partner, mother, and lover of life. I am so happy to have you here. Welcome, Rain.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here too. It's good to see you, Debbie.
Yes, I always love our time together, and I have been thinking about all of the wonderful things I wanted to ask you about relaxation and meditation. And there is nobody that I know who has the level of this calm presence that is so embodied in who you are. It's amazing. I feel myself every time I talk and connect with you, almost have a releasing breath. It's
Mhm.
like you've already had inhaled and you're going to exhale, and
Mhm.
your presence does that to me. You're just so embodied in what you do. I'm no thrilled to have you here. Thank you, Rain.
You're very welcome and thank you for all you're sharing. What's giving me a deep breath.
Oh, thank you. It's just a love fest here, ladies, listeners. um, Before, when we were in the green room, we were talking about how expansive mindfulness is and relaxation and meditation. It's so vast once you start looking into meditation. And I believe that sometimes people don't quite understand how many different aspects they are and
Mm.
how ways people can study different parts of meditation. And so I wanted to see if you could give us even just a quick overall of what are some of the major categories, and then what area you actually really do that deeper dive into so that people can get a better understanding of it.
Mhm. That's a great inquiry. There's many aspects to meditation and what a person would be looking for in their meditation practice. And what a person is looking for is going to dictate what kind of meditation is going to be effective.
Mhm.
The origins of meditation are in spiritual practice. It's really or originally a practice of asking the deep questions of who am I? What is this world? And who or what is God? The spiritual tradition I'm closely related to is Advaita Vedanta, an ancient tradition of India related to Hinduism, but different. It's the tradition of liberation. And in looking at the history of the world, Sanskrit, the language of Advaita Vedanta, is considered the oldest language historians can find record of. I don't want to be an authority on that because there's a lot of discussion about which culture, which religion, which writing came first. I'm not an authority on that. However, Advaita Vedanta is not only meditation, but looking at various aspects of what meditation is and how to understand the mind through meditation and
Mhm.
spiritual discipline. And then from that discipline was born all of the other traditions, Buddhism and yoga and Ayurveda, which is a medical practice.
Mhm.
So in those other practices, there are also meditation and onward and so forth through history and through time until this age where we're interested in the science of meditation and what meditative practices actually benefit a person physiologically and how can we measure those benefits and understand them with charts and graphs and numbers, which is totally valuable and important. And it gives us the kind of information of what meditation is going to be helpful for executive functioning, what meditation is helpful for releasing trauma, for understanding the truth of being, or so on and so forth. There's many reasons why a person could want to meditate, even if it's just to have a new experience.
Mhm. That's a really powerful understanding. I think can help a listener understand, and myself, of course, like if you're wanting to get different types of outcomes and you're using a different meditation than maybe than you think. Because I know, like, in rehabs, a lot of them have a meditation that somebody who does a daily meditation with them shows how to connect with their own bodies, for example. And so if they're using some other type of meditation that's not really set up for that, then they're not gonna get the results and maybe not get that satisfaction when you are working with the correct way. It would I don't know what word that would be, but
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So if I am looking for a better relationship or connection to or with my body, and I'm engaging in a mindfulness or a meditation practice that is engaging my mind, that is a mental intellectual practice, I'm not going to get what I'm looking for. There are body oriented meditative practices effective for reconnecting with, strengthening connection with the body. And I love your point because it's so clear. If we want to do something for our physical self, we need to go straight there. And the more we think about it, we're actually distancing ourselves from the goal. And not that the mind is bad or a wrong course, it just provides a different benefit.
Mhm. Yeah, because I have found that when I've tried to just meditate without being guided, I find that my mind it's total wild monkey mind, that expression. Like, it thinks about it everything under the sun. Don't forget to add the vinegar to the grocery list, and what time is that meeting tomorrow? And it brings up everything but keeping me focused, as well as if I don't change every so often the guided meditation, I just zone out.
Mhm,
I can't follow it anymore. My mind puts up all of this resistance.
mhm,
And do you find that is common? Maybe I'm not doing the right type of meditation.
mm,
Maybe this guided meditation, which is a Dr. Joe one about calling in your future, it's just connecting with this crazy mind. And
mhm,
maybe it should be a different meditation to help with, say, the cognitive, the executive functioning, and connecting with my body.
mhm.
I'd
Yeah,
love
so
to hear your perspective.
it does depend on what you're after. And one thought I had at first was if your mind is tuning out the meditation, are you getting it subliminally? Are you still feeling a benefit even if your mind is not following it? Subliminally means the information is getting in, bypassing consciousness, and it's going into the subconscious. And so there is a positive effect there, but it's different than mentally following along with the words.
Mm, that's interesting because with my work, we go deep into the subconscious.
Mm,
And I know I can play it after I've listened to a recording, but still going back in there.
mhm,
So the meditation could be doing the same thing,
Uh-huh.
with a guided meditation.
Mhm.
Hmm.
I have a bit of an opposite experience to share that I share because I think it's a bit funny, which is that I really love yoga nidra, which is a practice of a very special kind of relaxation that's basically giving the body permission to rest. And there are a couple of people who guide these yoga nidra sessions that I really love their voice. And that's something that's very important to me is to find the voice that really speaks to me, the voice that I can enjoy and let in. And when I'm listening to a yoga nidra meditation, I usually do fall asleep, which for me is the point because I need some help in deep rest and relaxation and having a good night's sleep. When I can follow along for the entire meditation, I know I'm done with that one. I actually don't want to listen to it anymore because I stayed too awake during it and I wasn't
Hmm.
getting into. So there are beta brain waves, which is like the doing activity of the mind. There's the alpha, which is relaxed and awake. And then there is theta and delta. And the lower you go in this neurological arousal, so the brain waves get slower and slower, that's how you get the deep, restful, rejuvenating sleep. And if I'm staying too alert during a yoga nidra session, I'm like, okay, that's great. And now I need one that's going to put me to sleep.
Yeah. I've had the experience where I'm listening to the guided
Uh-huh.
and I realize that I have fallen asleep,
Mm.
but I wake up probably right as it ended. I think I went deep into theta brain,
How do you feel after?
usually very refreshed. I slept for a couple hours, like a really
Yeah.
good night's sleep, and it might have only been 20 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's like power nap times 10.
Mhm. Now, this is a really interesting scientific term that's relatively new, and it's non sleep deep rest. And they just call it NSDR, non sleep deep rest. And it's exactly a term to describe something that age old meditators know very deeply and intricately. It's that deep state of relaxation through meditation. You wake up feeling rejuvenated, refreshed, as though you had a nap. And doing that during a person's day actually enhances sleep at night, helps a person fall asleep easier and stay asleep longer if there's a period of non sleep deep rest during the day.
Mhm. Oh, isn't it wonderful that as a lifelong meditator, there is now all of this science for what you already knew intuitively? Or
Yes. Yes, it's interesting. It's also really fun when there is a scientist who knows the cosmic joke of it all. Science is great. And I appreciate the people who get the humor that we are coming up with new names for things that already exist.
I love it. I wanted to circle back to the different types. Somebody might have been listening
Mhm.
and we didn't give them guidance. If you're wanting to connect with your body or cognitive functioning, what would be the best type of meditation for that? Maybe some other examples too, right? For different outcomes they were looking for. What's some general guidelines you give, Rain?
I like to include it all as best I can so that there are body oriented practices of meditation, mental cognitive practices, heart based and emotional practices, as well as spiritual practices. And then from there, from a steady foundation, we can move into relationships and creativity. If a person wants a better relationship with their body, it's really important to include the sensations of the body. So the meditation practice will likely notice the temperature of your body, your posture, how you're sitting or lying down, walking, notice your movement. So words that point a person to attending to their physical form. Can you feel your heart in your chest? If you can't, that's okay, but be open to feeling your own pulse from the inside out. Things like that would be useful for somebody who is looking for a body oriented practice.
Mhm.
Now, what's interesting here is that the body actually supports the mind. So there is a wisdom in meditation that sometimes an agitated mind actually means that the body needs more exercise. And this is a link between
Mm.
ancient practices of yoga and meditation, that sometimes a person was not accepted by a guru if their mind was too agitated because it showed that their body was having a need and wasn't allowing them to sit into practice. If somebody's looking for a mental practice, you can also look at your body and consider, how is my physical health and how am I taking care of my body? Am I
Mhm.
getting proper nutrition, rest, proper hydration? Check, check, check. Okay, I'm ready to address my mind. And then that opens up the doorway to really consider, what is happening? Anxious thoughts, repetition of a specific thought, catastrophic thinking, blank mind. It could be so many different things. For cognitive based practices, mindfulness is appropriate and very helpful. So, really learning to witness what is and is not happening in the mind without doing anything. So, the first part is to watch and notice. And also, what that means is find out when the desire is to stop a thought, or when a desire is to fall too deep into a story, or when the desire is some sort of movement of the mind that's different than witnessing.
Mhm.
Because those places are usually the places that need healing, whether it's trauma that's asking to be resolved, or a worry or a fear that needs to be addressed. It could be anything. Mindset shifts are totally appropriate in mental based practices. So that's the direction there. And then so on with the heart and the spirit.
Oh, that's wonderful. Now, is that the same right now? There's a lot of uncertainty, a lot of anxiety,
Hmm.
not just in the States, but globally. And is there a practice that you would recommend that helps those who do feel anxious or feel a higher level of anxiousness that really is impacting their lives?
Yeah, such a profound question because there is a lot of reason to feel anxious in our world right now. And there's lots of
Mhm.
what I notice in the groups I teach is that even the most meaning people fall into spirals of negative thought, predictions of outcome. They'll subconsciously be talking about the negative outcome they do not want. A meditation practice and mindfulness could be helpful, especially through visualization. What if we visualize what we want? If one person on their own visualizes what they want and train the mind to think of what is wanted rather than what is not wanted. This is different from spiritual bypassing. It's an important topic. Visualization is not saying such and such is not happening. Visualization is this being exactly as everything is in this moment, the anxiety I feel and all the rest. This being as it is, what can I imagine moving forward? What can grow from here that would be better? And having the courage to use the innate creativity of the spirit, borrowing from the spirit to say, hey, I can actually see this resolution and I'm going to put my energy around this idea.
Mhm. Now, is that type of meditation something that's silent to music or guided?
It could be all, it could be deep internal silence with music guiding. Holotropic breathwork is a beautiful practice that uses music to guide a person with breath through a whole experience.
Mhm.
And music doesn't have to be used as in holotropic breathwork. It's just to say there are specific practices that use music in a way of visualization. Guided visualization is very beneficial, especially if the guide is skilled at encouraging the person to imagine what's true for them
Mhm.
rather than telling them exactly what to imagine.
Mm.
So imagine yourself walking down a street, any street that you would like to walk down. And that gives the listener the permission to create their own street that they want to walk down.
Oh, so that's the slight difference
Yeah.
versus if you were guiding the meditation, describing the street
Mhm.
that they see. Oh.
And this is actually important because there is an element of mind control. It's crucial to find teachers you love and that you feel safe with and you feel connected to, because in these different states of consciousness that meditation naturally takes a person into, it's so wonderful to be held well and to have every individual honored for who they are rather than trying to push a body of people in a specific direction. There's a subtle difference and also a very obvious difference there.
Mhm.
So when a person, a listener, a meditator is allowed to use their own creative experience to create the reality they want, it's empowering.
Thank you for making that clear what those subtle differences are as somebody is seeking out who they want to work with, because I really agree with that you have to feel safe
Mm.
because it's not just get on an app and listen to the first thing and then say, "Oh, that doesn't work for me."
Mhm. Mhm.
I think it's just dating. You gotta try out gotta go on a few dates to
Mhm.
figure out, or you wouldn't just go to any doctor that randomly you're gonna go look up and then see how you feel aligned with them or not.
Mhm. Mhm.
Now, what is your favorite type of meditation that you have found that your people, your clients come to you for?
There's a meditation that works best for me personally. And then there's what people come to me for, whether it's the same
Mhm.
thing or something different. And I would say that my I see how my practice has fluctuated over the years. So since 2000, that's 24 years at the time of this conversation that we're having.
Mhm.
So you can imagine that there's a lot of things that have happened in the world. I've aged a lot. I was 26, now I'm almost 50. There's a lot of changes in that amount of time. But hands down, the most common thing that people are looking for when they come to me is they want to feel more calm. They want to feel more peace. They want some sort of emotional or nervous system regulation. A lot of people are letting go of things. There's a lot of life transitions that I see. And what I'm offering most people is space to check in with themselves first and foremost. How are you arriving today? What brings you here? What gift can meditation give you? We start from there. Then, no matter what they say, I intertwine what they want into what I offer. I attend to the body, the mind, the heart, and the spirit, because I find that even in gesture, even in a little taste, begins a solid foundation.
Mhm. I love that. I just want to take a deep breath, go deeper into our conversation. You moved from one coast to another
Yes.
and you're immersed in nature.
Mhm.
How has that had a impact on your practice and in life, how you're able to show up in life.
My practice and how I show up in life. I have a large garden and a large property. A lot of my meditation is outdoors. Here in Vermont, it's not a place to go to. I'm going to go to the beach to meditate, or
Mhm.
I'm going to go to a state park to meditate. I live in a forest garden, learning to garden year round. My meditation is naturally in nature. Interesting things happen, like a flock of cedar waxwing birds come and actually eat our entire elderberry tree, which was okay, but they did eat the entire thing. They're a really rare bird that birders seek and cannot always find. I had the gift of these cedar waxwings, a very social bird. So you don't just see one, nine, and then you see 15, and you're like, oh my gosh, I think there's over 20. They go together and take turns eating. They're a fascinating bird. So, what this has to do with meditation is that I get to use them as my meditation. I watch and get to
Mm.
know them because I have the spaciousness inside to do so. I have opportunity because they're right there. And there's a way that I like to show up in life, which is that I like to be full in no matter what I'm doing, no matter what coast I'm on or what country I do this. There's something miraculous about having nature so accessible. The part of me that loves the natural world gets fed daily.
When I was living in Flagstaff, the biggest pine forest in the US, and I was really able to walk out, turn right, and there was forest.
Mhm.
My nervous system really liked the sound bath, is what it's called right now. They've
Mm.
termed it a
Mhm.
new word for something
Forest,
that's been around forever, right?
huh?
The forest
Forest
sound bath.
bathing. Yeah.
And but it was well, it feels like marketing, but it truly is. I can't express the feeling of being in a forest.
Mhm.
It's like you're one with the trees and the smells and the birds or lizards or whatever is even the bugs that are
Yeah.
there, and
Yeah.
depending on what time of year it is and how peaceful it was, even when it was lots of snow and I have on my little Treks on the bottom of my shoes, trekking through the snow, how peaceful that was.
Yeah. Yeah. That's an excellent point, and it's reminding me of this analogy that happens in the forest, or a metaphor where being in the forest or in a natural space long enough over time, rather than being a person looking out into the forest, I begin to experience the forest looking at me. And that switch is really precious. It's as though the bears, squirrels, foxes, bobcats, birds, trees, moss, and plants are watching me. What is this human doing? Why is she here? Is she friendly? What's happening? In meditation, rather than watching the thoughts, which is a great step, there can be this reversal where the mind begins to see itself, and the mind begins to understand what the mind is made up of. Similar to being in the forest where there's this external that becomes internal, the mind and meditation can do something similar, which is looking out and then having the experience looking in. And that inward looking resolves so much that ails people mentally.
Yes, it's really quite magical living near trees and other types of mindfulness.
Mhm.
What ways would you suggest for people to get mindful or come back into their own bodies in this modern world? Our nervous systems are not meant for everything that's happening now. All the blue screens, all the connection, overstimulation of our nervous system. What ways would you recommend that listeners try for more mindfulness in their lives?
I suggest noticing how you are right now as you are you sitting or lying down or in movement, but starting from noticing oneself. I think one of the hard things about our culture these days is most people sit too much, whether driving at a desk or sitting for whatever reason. There's a lot of sitting. People might choose to move their bodies, walk, yoga, stretching, or tai chi, lifting weights, to letting that body have its way for a while produces a nice, stable foundation to address the mind and then to become even more mindful about, oh, and now what is my mind doing? The part of mindfulness I suggest for everyone is that gentle, non judgmental noticing of how am I right now? If I'm having a feeling, is this feeling about something or is it a generalized feeling? And what might I need? If I'm having a need or even a desire, what is it that I want or need in this moment? Those kinds of inquiries are presencing. They're about right now. They're not about yesterday or next year, right? How am I right now? What's going on for me right now?
Mm, yeah, with so much busyness happening. I know as we record this, I'm my life is probably at the slowest it has ever been because I have a tendency, a whole life of 58 years of being so multi-passionate about so many things that I have way overextended myself most of my life. And so slowing down really almost feels, I don't want to say a failure, that's not the word, but it feels very uncomfortable a lot of times. And then other days, I feel very grateful
Mhm.
that I've had this opportunity to slow down to what may be somebody's normal day of what they expect to be able to accomplish, or somewhere in between. Or some people are running from the moment they get up early to the end of the day and just fall exhausted into bed.
Right.
So if a listener's day is packed that full, when you talk about mindfulness, that's a luxury. So how can you start in something really short to get people started? What would you suggest?
Yes. Breathing first. And I'll go more into that. But I also want to say that being mindful is not a luxury at all. And it totally seems like it can be. Like I totally get it. I am a mom, all the rest. There is a way that we as human beings can be so busy that we can think taking the time to notice myself is too much.
Mhm.
That's a luxury. But let us remember that our health matters and that we want to be here for our jobs and children and whatever passion or hobby we have, or family or friends, or whatever the thing is that lights us up. We want to be here for it.
Mhm.
So taking care of ourselves is not a luxury. It's actually what we need to do. And it can be very simple. So with breath work, which I recommend for everybody, one breath that took less than a minute.
Mm.
Two breaths, we're still under a minute.
Yeah.
It's okay. It is okay to stop and breathe and move on. then do the dishes or write the essay or finish the work project or drive to the place, whatever the thing is, but breathe first and as often as possible.
I was practicing the box breathing just last night that you had sent me, and I found, like, the resistance in my body to do the box breathing. Maybe you can explain to us what box breathing is
Mhm.
and the benefits of one of those methods, because 'cause I'm sure there's lots of different types of breathing, but
Mhm.
yesterday, just experimenting with the box breathing was quite eye-opening.
Mhm. Mhm. Yes. And this is where the gentleness and the non judgmental attitude and really choosing to notice how one is more important than doing any exercise fully and completely or to somebody else's requirement. And so when there is resistance in the breath, how wonderful we can give ourselves permission to just let it go. Yeah, it's not the thing right now. And then also, if we want to, we can be curious about what that resistance is, but that's secondary to the gentleness. The self love is first, always. And box breathing is where we find a nice count. Usually, the instructions start with a count of 4. I tend to 5 or 6, but we breathe into the belly so that the belly expands on the inhale and flattens on the exhale. We breathe in for 4 counts and hold it for 4, and breathe out for 4 and hold it for 4. And making cycles of that box breath creates a square in the pattern of breathing. And the benefits that I know from my own practice and working with people is that the lungs and the heart work together to create a respiratory rhythm. And ideally, if we were to see a chart, like a graph, a moving graph of a wave, we would see that there is a peak and there is a valley to every breath. And when the heart and the breath are regulated, each peak and valley are relatively the same size. And there's just this predictable, beautiful rhythm. And so here's the rhythm of the breath. The heart rate is going to follow the same rhythm. So the
Mm.
heart is a little bit more toppy because of how it's read scientifically, but they follow the same pattern. And the box breath is one way to get those two in sync.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
I had no idea. Wow. Thanks for that.
You're welcome. It's a wonderful example of how science can give us information and create a feedback loop for our own experience.
Mhm.
And one of the reasons I say it like that is because I did grow up meditating my entire life from in utero onward. I've just always been a meditator. And then when I was in college, I found this really wonderful biofeedback and somatics program at Sonoma State University in California, where I got to study scientifically the physiology of relaxation, which naturally relates to meditation if meditation is being used in a relaxing way. There are lots of different meditation, like we mentioned, so not every meditation is relaxing.
Mhm.
But if we use meditation in a relaxing way, that's exactly what happens to the breath, whether it's box breathing or another way of getting there.
Mhm. I had no idea that was what, the biofeedback training, what the whole science behind what you're doing.
Mhm. Yes. So biofeedback can be used in so many different ways and it exists. It's not as popular as I would think that it would be because it's a phenomenal modality and methodology. But in short, what we're doing is we're using computers and physiological real time information to create a feedback loop. As I breathe in, I feel myself breathing in, and then I see it on the screen, and it gives me information both subjectively and objectively and I can tap into my autonomic nervous system, which is thought to be automatic, but
Mhm.
it's not. If you
Mm.
have a feedback loop, you can get in there and you can make changes to your brain waves, to your heart rate, to so many internal systems. You just need the information.
If there's one thing that you could leave listeners with
Mm.
who have never tried meditation, what would you leave them with?
In the past, when I've been asked this question, I've said, allow yourself to be silent for 1 minute. And I stand by that. Start with 1 minute. But today I'm going to answer a little differently and say 3 minutes. And
Mm.
I'll tell you why. It's because in 3 minutes, we have 1 minute to settle down.
Yeah.
We have 1 minute to relax. And we have 1 minute to shift our consciousness. And if somebody has never meditated before, but they're curious or interested for whatever reason, put a gentle timer on for 3 minutes, something that you're not going to mind hearing a sound. Find a sound that you like. And then for those 3 minutes, just notice what happens for you without judgment, without need or desire for anything to be a certain way. But for 3 minutes, just notice your own experience of yourself.
That's beautiful. I love that. Love that. So I'm going to shift us gears
Like,
and I'm going to ask my two questions that I ask my guests. And the first one is that I really believe in the power of music
mhm.
to change our mood, lift us up. And I'm curious to hear what your like go to uplifting you, help you shift back into if you're having a moment,
Yeah.
song that's your like go to that you would listen to.
Yeah, it changes all of the time. But
Mhm.
right now, even today, it is the song by Rising Appalachia called I Believe in Being Ready.
Mhm.
It's very upbeat and I love the band and it gets me ready.
Oh, I love that. I'm not
Good.
familiar with it, so I'm gonna go queue it up and add it to our playlist.
Yeah, let me know what you think. I think you'll like it.
Okay. Now now my second question is with where you are now in this season of your life, you
Mhm.
had to go back and talk to your younger self about your own worth. What would you tell yourself?
I have been considering this, and if I were speaking to my younger self, I am imagining myself at about 7 or 8, and I am saying to her, I'm saying to myself, you are worth your own healing. You are worth the help that you need. Tell somebody what you're troubled with. Be really honest. Find a safe person and tell them everything and let them help you. And I'll be here on the other side. And it's going to be hard and it's going to be okay.
Mhm. Oh, I can just feel that. Oh, thank you for sharing that. That is just so vulnerable. Mm, I can
Yeah.
feel that.
Feel it too. Question, Debbie.
It's I have found that it's a very powerful one with that I've asked myself, and I think that's where it originally came from with where I know now because I had decades of struggle of
Mhm.
understanding my own worth.
Mhm.
And when you step into it, I really believe that how we show up is different, and that really our own light really starts to shine through. And then that brings us so much of abundance. And abundance isn't necessarily always about money. It's the abundance of our lives, of love, of laughter, of travel, of experiences, of learning how to garden, right? In Vermont in the middle of winter. That's abundance.
True. I learned how to garden garlic, which is not hard, but it is such a miracle. Those little garlic cloves get planted in the fall. I'll plant my garlic soon, probably in October. That's pretty standard around here. But then they grow through the winter, like they grow through the snow, they grow through the ice. And sometimes, if it becomes a few days in the 40s, some little green shoots will start to poke up. But then in the summer, there's like, and then we get to pick the green garlic, and then we get to pick the garlic scapes, and then we get the garlic bulbs. It is such a miracle, the abundance of growth. And okay, now I'm just going to go on a little bit of a tangent here, but the darkness is part of the growth.
Mhm,
The cold, every season, we're talking about seasons in this conversation. And I love that
mhm,
to bring that word in, Debbie. Every season matters for growth. We
mhm.
need all of it. We need the sunshine, we need the rain, we need the wind. It all is meaningful to how we become ourselves.
Amen. I don't know what it is. And as we had talked in the green room was that I've slowed down to a level I've never been at, and it's uncomfortable, and it reminds me of the garlic. It's necessary. It is necessary.
Yeah. Thank
It
you
is
for giving
necessary.
this gift to yourself, Debbie.
Mhm. Yeah. And so I've so loved our conversation. It's always so precious for us to talk,
Mm,
and you just really bring me back into myself. And I'm sure the listeners as well, how important it is to incorporate these practices and to not make it bigger than it really needs to be. It can be simple on those really busy days, or you can take the time and go do a longer version of your own practice. So, how can people reach you, Rain?
so many ways. Since I've known you, Debbie, I have created so much free content. I'm everywhere now. My website is rainelizabeth.org, and that is always a work in progress, but it's an easy place to go. And then I'm on all the social media and YouTube and Insight Timer. If you search for my name, Rain Elizabeth Stickney, you will find me.
Oh, I love that. I would highly suggest people go to your YouTube too.
Mm.
That's where I did the box
Oh, great. Okay.
breathing was from the YouTube, and to subscribe. It's really beautiful to have it just show up
Mm,
and know
mhm.
that you can go right to it. You don't have to go keep searching. So, thank you, Rain, for being here. It's always such an honor for us to talk and connect, and just feels blessed. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie.